The stagecoach groaned as it lurched to a stop before the small, snow-covered homestead. Winter had wrapped the land in a heavy white quilt, the kind that swallowed sound and made even the wind whisper. Mary stepped down carefully, boots sinking into the powdery drift. Her breath curled in tight clouds, each one trembling like her hands. She adjusted the grip on her single, worn suitcase, the last remnant of a life that had offered little but loss. The horses snorted and stomped, eager to be done with the cold. The driver tipped his hat. "Storm's blowing in fast, miss. You sure this is the place?" Mary looked at the cabin, smoke curling from the chimney, snow piled against its sturdy logs. A barn stood nearby, half buried but well kept. It wasn't grand or fancy, but it was real, solid, more than she'd had in years. "Yes," she whispered, though her voice nearly caught. "This is it." The driver nodded and whipped the reins, the coach vanishing into a blur of white and swirling flakes. Mary stood alone, her heart thudding in her ears. She clutched the letter in her pocket, creased from too many readings. "If you'll come, I promise you honest work, a warm home, and respect. Caleb R. Turner." Respect. The word had hooked into her heart like a lifeline. She had never been promised that before. The man who had been waiting near the barn stepped forward. His hat was dusted with snow and frost clung to his coat. He moved with a kind of steady, grounded confidence, like the land itself had shaped him. He took off his hat. "Ma'am." Mary swallowed hard. "Mr. Turner?" "Yes, ma'am," he replied. His voice was deep, warm, despite the cold. "You must be Mary Whitlock." "I am," she said, though her voice wavered. The cold, the fear, and the hope all tangled inside her. She cleared her throat. "I apologize for coming early. The storm was too close for comfort." The driver insisted. "Then he did right," Caleb said simply. He stepped closer, careful, as if not to scare her. "We're expecting near whiteout conditions by nightfall. I'm glad you got here before the wind started howling." Mary tried to smile. "It's already howling where I come from." He didn't laugh, but his eyes softened. Brown, steady, thoughtful. Eyes that had seen hardship, maybe loneliness. But not cruelty. "Let me take your suitcase," he offered. She jerked her head in a small, instinctive refusal. I can manage." Surprise flickered in his expression, but he didn't question her. Didn't try to insist or take it anyway, as so many men would have. He only nodded once. "All right. Let's get you inside. Fire's warm. Supper's almost done. You must be hungry from the journey." Hungry, exhausted, and scared that this too might slip from her grasp, but she followed him up the steps of the small porch. The door opened with a soft creak and heat washed over her like a blanket. She stepped inside and nearly sighed. The scent of wood smoke, winter spices, and something simmering on the stove wrapped around her. The cabin wasn't large, but it was tidy, clean, welcoming. A stone fireplace crackled in the corner, flames flickering gold across the room. A quilt lay over a rocking chair. A table was set with 2 mugs and a pot of steaming coffee. And above the mantel, pine boughs and a few red berries had been arranged with surprising care. "You decorated," Mary murmured. She reached out and touched a pine branch. The needles were fragrant, fresh. Caleb shrugged as if embarrassed. "Figured a home should look like a home when someone arrives. Especially for Christmas." Her throat tightened. No one had decorated anything for her in, she couldn't remember how long. Yet here was a man who had made a place for her, even before meeting her. "I appreciate it," she said softly. He nodded toward the table. "Would you like something warm to drink? It's a long ride from the station." She hesitated, then set her suitcase gently by the wall. Her fingers tingled painfully as they thawed. "Coffee would be lovely." He poured her a mug, steam rising between them. His hands were strong but careful, movements deliberate. A man used to labor, wood, horses, soil, yet mindful enough to pour a drink without a drop spilled. She took the mug, letting the heat soak into her hands. "Thank you." "You're welcome." Caleb leaned lightly against the counter, giving her space. "You're younger than I thought." Mary blinked. "Is that a problem?" "No," he said quickly. "Not at all, just unexpected." He looked down, rubbing the back of his neck. "I'm not good at talking sometimes." "You're doing just fine," Mary said. He glanced up, surprised by her gentleness. She sipped the coffee. Warmth spread through her cold chest. Her nerves settled, if only a little. "Your letter said you needed help here." "With the ranch." "I do," he admitted. "Winters are hard. Summers aren't much kinder. Ranching's too much for one man." I thought maybe two people working together might stand a better chance. Mary nodded. I know how to work hard. I've been doing it all my life. I figured as much, he said quietly. But I didn't ask someone to come here to be worked to the bone. You'll be treated as my equal. That's a promise. Her eyes stung. Promises had always broken around her, but something about the way he said it, firm, sincere, made her want to believe. Caleb cleared his throat. You're free to rest tonight. Settle in. Tomorrow, if you're willing, I'll show you the ranch. I'd like that, she replied. A comfortable silence settled between them, broken only by the cracking fire and the soft whisper of wind against the windows. Finally, Mary looked at the flames and breathed deeply. Thank you for sending the letter. Caleb watched her for a moment. Then he said almost shyly, Thank you for answering it. Mary's heart squeezed. She wasn't just a mail-order bride stepping into a stranger's home. She was a woman who had taken one fragile chance. And somehow she felt, for the first time in years, that she might have stepped into the right place. Snow drifted outside. The storm drew near. But in the warmth of Caleb Turner's cabin, Mary felt something spark quietly inside her. Hope. By Christmas Eve, the storm had become a living creature, an endless white breath, swirling across the plains, muffling every sound except the occasional groan of wind pressing against the cabin walls. The ranch, buried under fresh snow, looked like a world caught between silence and light. Inside, however, warmth wrapped everything in a soft glow. Caleb stood by the hearth, palms extended toward the fire, letting the heat chase the chill from his fingers. His hair was still dusted with snow from tending the animals earlier. Outside, tending to chores had felt like fighting through curtains of cold silk, the wind tugging at him as though it meant to carry him off. But when he stepped back into the cabin, the warmth wasn't just from the fire, it was from knowing she was inside. Mary was at the table, adjusting the placement of two simple plates. She moved carefully, almost reverently, as if afraid her presence might disturb the peace of the little home. The scent of roasted ham, a precious holiday portion, Caleb had saved for months, mingled with the fragrance of rosemary and the blackberry preserves she'd made herself. The homemaking, small though it was, had transformed the cabin in ways he hadn't expected. Her hands were gentle as she set down the fork beside his plate. She adjusted it twice, then flushed lightly, as though embarrassed by her own carefulness. Everything looks nice, Caleb said. Mary turned, the lamplight casting a golden halo around her soft hair. I wanted supper to feel like something special, she said quietly. It's Christmas Eve after all. It is, he replied. And it feels different this year. She paused, then smiled faintly, a small curve of her lips that seemed as fragile as the frost gathering on the window, but just as beautiful. During the week she'd been here, they had found a strange and gentle ease between them. She rose early and helped with chores without being asked. At night, they sat near the fire and talked, slow conversations about where she came from, what his parents were like, and the small hopes neither dared say too plainly. Some silences between them were shy, some were comfortable, and some were filled with something that neither of them had yet learned to name. Still, Caleb had carried a fear deep in his chest, a fear that she felt bound to him only by necessity, not by desire or choice. Tonight he wanted to ease that burden if he could. He stepped away from the fire and looked at her. Mary? She straightened, smoothing the front of her dress. Yes? He hesitated, searching for words. He wasn't a man used to speaking his heart. Most of his days were spent in silence, speaking only to horses or the quiet hum of the wind across the fields. But he didn't want to wait any longer. She deserved clarity. She deserved freedom. I want to say something important, he said, his voice steady but gentler than usual. I need you to hear it right. Mary clasped her hands in front of her, fingers twisting slightly. Her pulse fluttered. I'm listening. He drew a slow breath. When I sent for a bride, I didn't want someone to feel trapped, or indebted, or like they had to earn their place here. Her eyes widened a little, and he saw a flicker of pain there. Old pain, not caused by him but by someone long gone. I asked for a companion, he continued. Someone to share the days, the work, the quiet. Not someone to give up their whole life just to survive. His voice softened even more. Mary, you don't owe me anything. Not affection. Not loyalty. Not a future. You're free to choose your own path now that you're here, even if that path doesn't include me. Her breath hitched. She stared at him with something like shock, then confusion, then gratitude so raw it almost broke something in him. "Caleb," she whispered. "Why would you say that?" "Because you deserve the truth," he said. "You came here with nothing but hope. I don't want to take advantage of that." He paused. "I don't want to take advantage of you." Silence settled between them, but it wasn't the cold kind. It was full, meaningful, trembling. Mary stepped closer. The firelight danced across her eyes. "I came here because I wanted a place where I could be safe. A place where someone might want me, not for what I could do, but for who I am. I didn't expect gentleness. I didn't expect a home. But you've offered both." He swallowed hard, the tension in his chest easing only slightly. "I meant what I said. You don't have to feel tied to me." "I don't feel tied," she said softly. "I feel seen, and I haven't felt that in a very long time." Her hands trembled before she steadied them. "You look at me like I matter." Caleb exhaled, slow and uneven. "You do." Mary blinked rapidly as her eyes glistened. "The first night I arrived, I thought I was nothing more than a convenience. A way for you to have help on the ranch. But the way you speak to me, the way you give me space, the way you didn't take my suitcase when I said no." She paused, struggling through the emotion, tightening her voice. "That was the first time a man respected my boundaries. The first time I realized I might not be here as a bargain, but as something more." Caleb stood still, heart hammering. "Mary." She took a breath, stepped even closer, and looked up at him with quiet courage. "You said you didn't bring me here to work me to the bone or bind me to a promise. But Caleb, what if I want to stay? What if I want to try building a life with you?" His chest tightened so sharply he almost felt breathless. "You'd choose that?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "I would." Wind howled faintly outside, rattling the windows. But the sound only made the moment inside feel warmer, more intimate. Caleb reached out slowly, slow enough that she could pull away, slow enough that she could show any sign of hesitation, but she didn't. When his rough hand brushed hers, she closed her fingers around his, small and warm in his calloused palm. "I can't promise life here will be easy," he said. "Ranching's hard. Winter's even harder." "I know," she whispered. "But I can face hard things. I've done it all my life. I just want to face them with someone who sees me as more than a burden." "You're not a burden," Caleb said firmly. "You're the blessing I didn't know I needed." Mary's breath trembled, her eyes softening. "And you're the first Christmas gift I've ever truly wanted." He squeezed her hand gently. "Then let's start slow. Together, no pressure. No rushing." "Together," she echoed. They sat down to supper, the fire crackling near them, the storm swirling outside. The plates were simple, the meal modest. But Mary couldn't remember a dinner in her entire life that felt so full, of peace, of promise, of quiet happiness. As they ate, their shoulders brushed now and then, each accidental touch sending sparks of warmth through the cold winter night. When they finished, Mary stood at the window, looking out at the falling snow. Caleb joined her. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he murmured. "Yes," she whispered. Then she looked up at him. "Everything looks different now." Caleb gazed at her, feeling something settle into place deep in his heart. "So does everything for me. And for the first time in many years, maybe for the first time ever, Mary felt like she belonged somewhere. Not because she'd been bought. Not because she'd been sent for. But because she was wanted. On Christmas Eve in a snowbound cabin, two lonely people found warmth not just in the fire, but in each other.